If you've been paying close attention as you've surfed the web, you may have noticed that the URLs for content on the web tends to be very easy to read. As an example, you can see my site here. For each of the posts, I have an easy-to-read URL that matches the post title. So for example, for this WordPress 3.8 post roundup, the URL is morton.com/wordpress-3-8-post-roundup. It's easily readable for humans. But now that we're working with our own WordPress site that we've been working with, you may have noticed that the URLs look like this: $p=11. And while this makes a lot of sense for a computer, it really doesn't make any sense for humans, and it doesn't tell you anything about what this URL is. Now let me first explain what you're looking at. I told you previously in the course that WordPress is just a tool that helps you access a database, and then when people visit the site, they're pulling content off that database and displaying it in their browser. This is the call WordPress, the application, makes to the database. It says, give me the post with number 11 from the database. So it makes sense to the computer and it makes sense to the database, but it doesn't really make sense to us as humans. What we want is a human-readable URL. WordPress allows us to configure the URL in many different ways, and it's all done from the admin panel. So I'm going to jump to the admin panel here, and then go to Settings and Permalinks. A permalink is the URL you see in your address bar. And here you see you have a series of common settings, and then you can also create a custom structure. The default is always your site /?p equals and then the number of the post. And this, like I said, works well for the server, but it does not work well for humans. Instead of the default, you can change the permalink structure to many different options. You can get a permalink structure that shows the date and then the name. You can have the month and the name, a numeric structure, or the post name. The general recommendation nowadays is to simply select post name. Now, I know that if you've been working with WordPress previously, you may have chosen to have something like category/post name, and you may even have heard people say that you should never just have post name because it might cause conflicts within your site. That was true in the past, but it's no longer true. The way search engines and social media work, you want to make sure that your URL is as short as possible and that it doesn't look like one post belongs under some other post. Therefore, you want to use post name, and the code base inside WordPress has been changed to make this possible. So even if you have a site with thousands of posts, you should not have a conflict issue by using post name as the option. So try changing it to post name, scroll down, and click Save Changes. Now when you go back to your site and you visit a post, you should say a human-readable URL in the top here. Now, if you're working on localhost using WAMP, or if you're using Bitnami or MAMP or some other service, this may not work because you need to set up the right configuration settings. If you are on a Windows computer and you are using WAMP, you can activate the service by clicking on the WAMP icon, selecting Apache, Apache modules, and scroll down until you find this module called rewrite_module. If rewrite_module is turned off, your rewrites of the URL will not work, so this might be the problem. But if you're working on a live website, chances are your host will have rewrite activated and you can change your URL structure. Just remember one thing. When you change your permalink structure, you're making a permanent change to your site. That means anyone outside of your site, when they link to you, they'll be linking to this permalink. So make sure you pick the permalink structure that you are satisfied with right off the bat. And like I said, right now the recommended permalink structure is simply just a post name. If you do choose a different permalink structure and then later come back and want to change it, you have to make changes to your code base to capture the old permalinks so people can still find what they're looking for. And one last thing, you'll often find people telling you that you need to add either index.php or index.html, or maybe just .html or .php at the end of your permalink to make it better for Google. This is not true, and it never really was. It's a confused notion that there's a system in place that will somehow index certain pages better than others. That simply isn't the case. The way Google and other search engines index your content is based on contextual analysis, meaning they read the actual permalink and see if the permalink matches the search people are doing. So the index.php or index.html actually tells Google this is an index page instead of a regular post. So Google will get confused and might even derank your site. So stick with the recommended option here. Click on post name, save the setting, and don't change it.